Have you ever had a really quiet person in a class or a discussion who maybe didn't really participate or didn't really seem as involved? Did you probably really think that they were shy or didn't know what to say? Well, maybe it's something else. A person's culture can actually affect how someone listens and how someone learns, and this can really have a really big influence on how they participate in classrooms, which is a big problem in our schooling system today. First, we're going to talk about how your culture can affect the way you listen and the way you learn. Then we're going to talk about how this can cause problems in classrooms in the US. And lastly, I'm going to give a solution to this problem. So how do you learn? Like brain dominance, a person's culture can affect listening and learning abilities. In some cultures, known as high context cultures, like Asian cultures, Middle Eastern cultures, people are expected to be really good listeners, and that means to being silent communicators to really absorb and really understand the information they're receiving. These cultures, it's the responsibility of the listener to comprehend everything that they're being told. In other cultures, such as Western cultures, communicators are expected to give and receive a lot of information, and it's more of a two-way street. They communicate and people ask questions to really understand, because in these cultures, known as low context cultures, it's the listeners, the speaker's responsibility to make the listeners understand everything. So it's more of a two-way street. Well, why is this a problem, you may ask? Well, the US schooling system attracts a lot of foreign exchange students from Latin America, from Asia, from Europe, a lot of different places. And this poses a problem because people who come from a different culture listen and learn differently, like we just said. For example, Shannon and Pearson did a study that proved that Asian students in Western cultures expect instructors to really tell them what to do, and they believe everything they say and believe that the lecturer is correct all the time. This is because in their culture, they're taught to memorize whatever their lecturer says, not to question it, disagree, or to speak up. They believe that asking questions can be disrespectful and disrupt the whole classroom. So if you have Asian exchange students in the class, or people who come from that background, it is likely that they're going to feel uncomfortable to speak up in class. That means they're not participating, and then that may hurt their grade, or other people may think lower of them because they're not participating, they don't seem involved, when really it's part of their own culture, and that's why. Well, how do we solve this problem? Gia from Mary State University actually conducted a study on foreign exchange students, specifically from China, to determine ways that to enable students from different cultures to feel more free to speak up and to ask questions. She found 4 conditions in which students feel more comfortable speaking up. The first one is when they're in small group discussions, because they're kind of forced to speak more because there's less people around them, so they feel less pressure. Second is when an instructor gives more time after posing a question to let a student really think about it, translate it if they need to from the language they're speaking in to their language, and to then come up with a response. Third one is to be in a setting that there's less peer pressure. So a setting where students understand that the students are from a different country, and so they're more understanding that it may take a longer time to come up with something. And lastly, people feel more comfortable talking about their own culture. So these foreign exchange students found it easier to speak when they're talking about something that they know. So they know their culture, so they definitely feel more comfortable talking about it because they know it a lot better and they want everyone else to learn about it. Therefore, my solution to this problem is to create an environment where people feel more comfortable speaking. Definitely, that professor needs to give more time for students to really process what they're taking in and to answer questions better. And also have their classmates understand that it may take a little bit longer for them to process and answer questions or come up with ideas to share. Also, we should have smaller groups with people who are also from different countries, different cultures, because there's less pressure on them because they know the other people surrounding them also may have hard times learning or listening and processing what they're taking in. So in conclusion, we talked about how listening and learning is affected by your culture, and we talked about how this can be a problem in the US schooling system, and we then focused on some solutions on this problem. This is a really relevant issue today because the US schooling system attracts so many exchange students from all over the world. So it's important to be aware of this and to accommodate to everybody's learning and listening skills and abilities, and really focus on how to make our schooling system better. So next time you're in a class with someone who may not be from your culture, or who may be an exchange student, be aware that they learn and they listen differently. So don't think less of them because they're not participating, or because they don't seem involved, or because they're really, really quiet. That may just be their culture and how they were raised.